Welcome to Lakeside Stadium, Saturday evening, Saturday twilight football here in the NPL Victoria. Mark Van Aken with you, Katie Lambeski, and of course, most importantly, with us today, South Melbourne and the St Albans Saints. South Melbourne with a chance to go back to top spot with a win here this afternoon. The St Albans Saints, well, they started the season well, but it hasn't been a great couple of weeks, including last week, Katie, where they were completely dominated in the affair. They were probably lucky to get away with only a 1-0 loss, but against the Dandy Thunder, because Dandy Thunder were totally dominant.
Good to be with you, Mark, and thank you to everyone for tuning in tonight. As you picked up on there, Dandy were good value for the win. Could have put more on the board, but it just tells, I think, the story of a difficult period here for St Albans Saints. They come into this one pretty much the underdogs, you'd have to say, but there's also an opportunity there for them, particularly if they score early and put South under some pressure. It should be a cracking game.
Absolutely. We'll take you through the lineup, and I think it's fair to say they well and truly are underdogs. South Melbourne in goal, number 1, Pierre Clark. Number 2, Liram Almazi. Number 4, Luke Adams. Number 5, Jake Marshall. Number 9, Harrison Sawyer. Number 11, Brad Norton, the skipper. Number 12, Freddie Say. Number 13, Henry Hoare. Number 15, Marko Jankovic. Number 22, Daniel Clark. And number 45, Jerry Salados. We'll get to the benches in a minute, but just so I can get the St Albans lineup out for you. In goal, number 21, Matthew Sesto. Number 3, Christopher Dibb. Number 14, the skipper, Jordan Wilkes. Number 5, Brad Murray. Number 8, John McGugan. Number 11, Joseph Monek. Number 14, Stefan Baracevic. Number 15, Dimitri Parakos. Number 17, Anthony Desic. Number 19, Marko Bagalic. And number 20, Mate Barisic. And I know the ground announcer did have, I think it might have been Desic in a different number, so we'll just have a look at that, because make sure we've got the correct numbers, see if it's us or the opposite side of the field where they've got it wrong. As right from the get-go, South Melbourne launch an attack. St Albans in the unusual orange away kit. Of course, the old Dynamo, more familiar in the red, white and blue. But, of course, probably not possible today playing against South Melbourne. And it's a striking kit, especially for a man with Dutch heritage, Katie.
Absolutely, absolutely. Be interesting to see how, particularly how St Albans come out here at the moment. I think there's an opportunity for them early on, particularly if they try and run at South Melbourne early on, try to put them under some early sustained repeat pressure. I don't think sort of sustained sort of possession from the back, that sort of slow, methodical sort of pace is going to work for them tonight, though. I think they're going to have to put in a lot of work, particularly at running through. South Melbourne, of course, quite formidable defensively so far this season, only conceding the 3 goals. Truly has been the backbone of their success early on in this season.
Interesting to see on the bench. I won't quite get to it, but Marcus Shroom, we can tell you, is one of them. The man he scored last week for South Melbourne against Gully as they enter the 18-yard box, looking for some of that repeat pressure as you just spoke about. They turn on a dime. Straight in the area, header over the top there coming from Sawyer. And Matthew Sesto, not quite tested early, but we spoke about St Albans being under the pump last week. South Melbourne, probably lucky to get away with 3 points last week. Just having a chat with a few biased South Melbourne people, they even agreed that they were probably lucky. It probably should have maybe a 1-1 result or 1 point each would have been a little fairer. Green Gully would certainly agree, but ultimately if you don't put the goals in the back of the net, and as we said throughout that game, the longer you go without scoring a goal, the more pressure there is. So Marcus Shroon, no doubt, will be a super sub again this afternoon. The South to let that run and it goes out. Now we'll quickly go through that South Melbourne bench. So it's number 37, James Burgess. Number 8, Luke Pavlov. Number 10, as we mentioned, Marcus Shroon. Number 20, Zach Bates. And number 24, Ben Dieba. And for St Albans, number 31, Jake Angelowski. Number 2, Joseph Say. Number 7, Nathan Liberto. Number 12, David Sims. And St Albans have an early attacker themselves. And Salados thought he got clipped. The flag went off from the assistant referee. And there's a decent old shove in the back there too. And that's going to see yellow very early on in the game here. St Albans don't agree One thing I'll say about those orange kits, the black numbers, they're hard to pick out. But we'll pick up that player unless you spotted him, Katie.
Not quite on my end. The black numbers are making it a little bit difficult here from the broadcast side. But a very good chance there from John McGigan, who really against the run of play in these early exchanges, but very important chance. South Melbourne really good to get back and clear the ball out. Of course, Salados fouled there, but the referee paid an advantage. They'll just look to regroup a little bit here, South. Marshall shifting the ball wide.
Looking to connect there with Sawyer. Couldn't quite do it. When we get a break, I'll do my usual weather check. It annoys the hell out of some people, but it is important for people. Different parts of Melbourne, Victoria, and Australia, and of course the world to understand the conditions. But you can probably see they speak for themselves. What started off as a pretty ordinary autumn day in Melbourne has ended up being an absolutely cracking evening. And you can see the pitch is absolutely resplendent. Not a patch anywhere to be seen as South Melbourne. Another opportunity to attack via the throw. Just making, I guess, a lead in AFL parlance there with Salados. Now, Almazi. St Albans will look to clear. They're under the pump, but they're handling it quite well as Monic gets quite manic and then cops a little bump for his troubles there from Henry Hoare. Free kick will come their way. Plenty of chatter coming from Cooney Razov, the gaffer, on the St Albans bench as they methodically build up there. Dibb goes cross field. Now into the middle. It'll come back his way. In fact, it'll go... It was actually Dibb that received it back. They'll revert all the way back to Siesto there. Pass coming in from Bugalic. Long through the middle. A mini intercept there from Hoare. And now they can attack again here, South Melbourne. Clark had the first touch. Retreat a little bit to Adams. That defence that you spoke about, Katie. Jake Marshall. Literally does Marshall that defence. Here he is again. Just trying to find a way through. Numbers back in force in the early going here for the Saints. And something we used to see with Dean Anastasiades back in the NSL days. In the South Melbourne goal as this one now runs for Say. And he's just absolutely butchered that one. That's going to land in the VIS pool, I think. But, we notice Pierre Clark has got the old cap on today, looking into the sun.
Definitely will need that, particularly early on in this half, particularly going toward the Clarendon Street end, especially. South custodian Pierce Clark. South Melbourne looking just to regain just a little bit of initiative early on here. Barisic, of course, leading the line for the visitors tonight. Looking for Monic there down that side. Couldn't quite make the most of it, but has a corner to show for it. Of course, you can hear every little bit of commentary out on the ground here tonight. One of the benefits of NPL football, of course. Early chance here now for St Albans. What can they conjure up?
Indeed, it's a good one. Clark, who I think I called Pierre Clark a second ago, if I'm not mistaken. Apologies for that. Of course, Pierce Clark had to parry that one away, and he's had enough of the hat already, Katie. He's thrown it away. Decided it was blinding him a little bit. And just as we've mentioned the hat, the sun has sort of gone behind the clouds. A little bit of a reprieve. Take two for St Albans. The first corner was good. So is this one. Causing some problems. Something to think about for South Melbourne's defence. Now they can get away through Hoare. Hoare sends a long one down, gets his heels clipped. Now he did give his opponent a shove there. But his opponent reacted. I think it might have been McGugan. And if he was the one, I suspect he might have been the one with the first yellow. If someone can hit us up on social media. If you saw it better than us, let us know. We'll try and get that clarified as soon as possible. But if it was indeed him, he'd want to watch himself. I mean, there wasn't a heck of a lot in it, but he clipped the heels because Hall was off to the races there. Had plenty of space in front of him, but now St Albans have had time to drop numbers back, causing South Melbourne to go diagonal out to the left. And the skipper, Norton, just couldn't quite get that touch that he was looking for. Not a great record at the NPL level, St Albans, against South Melbourne. They've only met twice before today. South winning both encounters and putting through no less than 10 goals. St Albans only managing one. Of course, that's all history. And right there, I think it was Norton again. Just didn't even really know where that ball went. But it did come off his head into the South Melbourne technical area. Now a chance again for South Melbourne. St Albans definitely with a game plan to come in and put numbers behind the ball, which is understandable. South Melbourne, 4 wins in the season thus far, 3 draws. Still clean in terms of losses. St Albans, I was about to say South Albans, St Albans, they come into the round in 12th place. 2 wins, 2 draws, 3 losses. So a real mixed bag and a goal difference of -5, Katie.
Yeah, have had some decent performances and some decent results, but have just started to fall away just a little bit. Have had a tough run of fixtures, but Daniel Clark sends in the ball. It's well partly cleared. Freddie Say looks to put the ball back into goal, but couldn't quite get it on target. Of course, this is the challenge for South. I think a little bit tonight they're going to need to be a bit more proactive. They against teams that will like to come out and dominate possession, that they really match up well on those sorts of teams. But at home, against a side you're expected to beat, you're going to need a little bit more proactive, particularly going forward.
Parakos for St Albans there, just getting to his feet. Looking a little sore, but seems to have jogged it off. And it was actually Christopher Dibb just waved forward by Matthew Sesto, saying, mate, you're not doing me much good out there on the left-hand side. And you've got to say, I know South Melbourne's been sort of tinkering with their fixturing and just working out exactly what the right time is for their support base. We know certain clubs have had certain sort of times and dates for a very long time that work for their support base. South Melbourne's still tinkering because, as you can see, not a fantastic turnout tonight. Not exactly big rivals, these two, but it's Saturday, 5 o'clock, in stunning conditions. About 18, 19 degrees, I'd estimate. And now, South Melbourne can go forward. That was Clark. He's had quite a few touches early. Nothing overly promising, but just working his way into the game. As a throw will come for Adams. Just wondering what's on here. It's now going to be Clark again. Comes back to Hoare, out wide to Norton. Norton looks to follow up the 1-2 pass. In the end, pretty easy to pick off for the visitors. As we chime into the 12th minute of the game. Still scoreless, as you can see, here at Lakeside. Now, this man Say before the game, just watching a bit of the warm-up, imploring his teammates to have a look at the opposition as Adams fires in. Follow-up chance here for Clark, but it's seen to by the St Albans defence. But Say was sort of really pointing out, look at the intensity of those guys, boys, versus us. Now, whether it was just a G-up or whether he genuinely sensed that they were a cut above in their warm-up. But he's really trying to urge the boys on as Clark gets a touch there. And, of course, you'll be keeping an eye on the other fixtures tonight. Of course, they'll probably kick off most of them, I guess, after we finish up. But some results from last night we'll get to as soon as we get a little bit of a break, and we do get one right now. Last night it was Port Melbourne at home, drawing 1-1 with Avondale. Bentley seeing off Oakley at home, That would have been a bit of a rivalry game down there in the southeast. Now Say out wide for Adams. Just put a little bit too much on it, but it still caused enough for St Albans to think they'd send it out for a South Melbourne corner. As we see those stats hopefully come up across our screen. Headed on, but safely into the hands of Sesto there. Never really a threat. One of the great features, of course, of us broadcasting so much NPL football, not just at this level, but also with the elite women's level and also NPL 1 and 2. That's in the social club before the game. We did see South Melbourne taking on Calder United. South, I think, winning that one in the end 3-2. They were looking comfortable at 3-1 and copped a reasonably late goal. Just put them under the kibosh a little bit as Dib just slices that one. Thought it was going to run out. Sawyer didn't really know where it was. Clark again. Just trying to play in tight spaces, South Melbourne. Just trying to open up the gaps. Not quite working at the minute though, Katie.
Better though. Better bit of ball movement there from the home side. Being a bit more quicker on the ball, just trying to split open the visiting defence in a bit more direct sort of way, which is important. I think especially tonight. Clark looking to flick on there, looking for the big man in Harrison Sawyer, who's tripped in the box. Nothing doing there, but South will look to push forward here through a corner. Of course, big news out of South Melbourne this week with the signing of Josh Baresi announced earlier in the week. Corner there by Daniel Clark. Looping cross, looking for the back post, but unfortunately nothing doing there, Mark.
No, not great execution in the end there for South Melbourne. The other result from last night's games, Dandenong City drawing 1-1 with Green Gully. As you mentioned pre-game, South Melbourne can go back top. They're temporarily sitting in second. And St Albans in 12th. They just need to get some points on the board to get themselves out of that bottom pack at the moment. It'd be a monumental feat if they can take a point, or especially 3 points away from Lakeside tonight, as Say has another touch on the ball. Just tries to toy there with Monick. But Monick was equal to it for the most part. In fact, he wins the free kick. So he's done well there. Because Say was just looking to skid him down the right, just looking for a little bit of fancy footwork. And Sesto will be called all the way over. As you mentioned, 1-1 winners away at Green Gully last week, South Melbourne. Opposite result there. You can tell you, South Melbourne's second ever biggest win at NPL level was against this outfit, 8-1 back in 2017. So that obviously accounts for a lot of the 10 goals they've scored in the two fixtures. Now a scramble on the box. What can St Kilda? We are near St Kilda. What can St Albans muster? Not a heck of a lot in the end. Just got themselves, I think, a little bit too excited in the 18-yard box there, or in fact, nearly the 6-yard box. Just looking for some more composure from his front line players there would be the manager, Razov. And just a hush over Lakeside Stadium at the moment, as you mentioned. Not a big turnout tonight. This one flies over the back, knotted out, and that won't be a corner. It will be a throw still in a dangerous space. But good work ultimately there by the South Melbourne defence. Good communication between Luke Adams there and Piers Clark. Throw to come now for Bagalic. He's probably stolen a couple of yards there, but it's almost to his disadvantage, to be honest. How long can he go? Long enough. Not on. Seen out. Nothing at home for South Melbourne. Clark misread that one. Better read there came from Barashevich, but they've coughed it up. Now comes Salatos. Just skins him, Salatos down the middle, but squares it up, and there was nothing at home. But a pretty lacklustre clearance there for St Albans. And a throw to come again South Melbourne's way. So, had the lion's share of possession so far, South Melbourne, as to be expected. Clark brings it down. A couple of feet just lash out at the ball. None really connect. Good work from Adams out to the left. South Melbourne, though, not as smooth as we might have expected in the opening 19 minutes here. Going all right nonetheless. Combination of Adams and Marshall. Now I think it was Jankovic. A couple of touches there for Sawyer. Never really had it under control. Wilkes had the important first touch for the clearance for St Albans. It was a shove in the back. South Melbourne coaches area, technical area, sort of thought so. Wouldn't have been a lot in it. Would have been unlucky to get the whistle blown against them there. You feel there, the Saints. And just covering his eyes there, Clark. You'd imagine all he'd be seeing is silhouettes. So Almadi. Long and diagonal. I think South would be preferring to just get a bit of build-up than that. Just playing like their little squares. Clip of the heels there, but nothing intentional. So Almazi gets to his feet pretty quickly. He has to, because St Albans are in attack. Out wide. And the offside flag has gone up. So that's clumsy there for St Albans. I think it might have been waved there against Parakos.
Yeah, but you wouldn't mind that if you're Kruni Razov there. Just a bit more ambition, I think, a bit more drive there by the visiting side. Joseph Monek really doing well to cut inside, really putting in a lot of work. And you look to pounce on a turnover here. What can they manufacture here? Dinamo. Cross looking just for the far side. Say look to clean up, but no, neither side can get a real hold of it at the moment. Genuinely such a hard-working type, up and down the flanks all day. Clark and Sawyer linking up down the left side there, but St Norman's doubling back to go for a corner now for South Melbourne.
Sawyer there, just showing his size and his experience. Just nudging his opponent out of the way in a legal fashion. There's another corner, as you mentioned, coming for South. I have that down as 3, but I have been known to not mark them down as religiously as I should. Header across the face of the goal. Off the line for St Albans. Thought Clark was going to get to that. He could not. Now a chance to counter for the visitors. Down the left flank. Monik looks up. Dangerous ball. Telegraphed it. Gets away with it for now. Barisic. Put it across the face, and it was McGugan there that was really not happy with the square up there from Barisic. And that's a keeper's ball now for Clark. It seems like we're only in the opening 5 or so minutes, but we are indeed about to tick into the 23rd minute of the game. And most South fans would have fancied themselves at least a goal up at this stage. To their credit, St Albans have for the most part kept shape. Tend to have a standard 5 or so, always behind the ball. Very disciplined, understanding they are on the road. at a venue they last played at and copped 8 goals. Albeit with a very different lineup and a very different world, of course. That line was played for Say by Clark, and Say, can he save it? He can't. Got to go forwards the call. Bagalic heeds the requests. Adams, Skyball, might bring rain. Almazi didn't know where it was. A couple of times tonight for South Melbourne, it's gone behind them, and just seen the boys flicking their heads around, wondering where the pill is. He knows where it is right now, though, Almazi. As is that pigeon as it flies away. Knocked to his feet. Almost a handball, but it would have been... Well, it was definitely not intentional as Sawyer was just trying to get to his feet. His boot might have just got half dislodged. No. Adams with a throw. That ball's come into our grandstand here on the far side, which, of course, really opened for the NPL. Unless we had a grand final or something of the like here. And they tend to be played at Amy Park these days. Salados, oh, an extra nod on there. I'm not sure if it came. I think it did come from Clark. No, it didn't. It came from a St Albans player. Well, not according to the referee, because it's another corner for South Melbourne. And Clark will be the man to take it. I thought that might have come off for South Melbourne head, but to be fair, there were plenty of numbers in the box. I don't know if you're checking out the replay for us there, Katie. And what can Clark deliver from the left? Salados comes in maybe for a short corner. It's not on. This one's pretty well hit. In fact, not that well hit. It's gone too far posted, but it's been knotted in. And South Melbourne are on the books. I think it's Jake Marshall. Holler for a Marshall, South Melbourne have done. And he has delivered. And the small but boisterous crowd here at South Melbourne has come to life here in the 24th minute. It was a scramble in the box. The corner, it was a little bit long. But Jake Marshall, basically on all fours, just heads in the goal in minute 25 of the game.
Big moment in the game there. Game, I think, needed a goal just to liven things up just a little bit. Both sides really were pushing, really were trying to push forward, try to get, build that momentum. South capitalise. Wonderful, headed effort there. Sawyer just was really in the way of the St Albans defence, and then just was able to allow that space for Marshall to just poach in from behind. They'll look to build on this advantage here. Possibly a foul, but an advantage played. Sawyer linking up, attempting to link up with Salados, but St Albans double back to clear. They'll look to build on this now, Mark.
And there's been a yellow shown to... Who was it? I think it was McGugan, so it was, yep. I thought, well, I did know that McGugan had committed the foul, but I wasn't quite sure that was actually him for a second there, so... Half a second. The ref didn't get super close. We thought he was carding someone on the bench for half a moment, but McGugan is protesting it, but it was a pretty nasty one from behind. Yellow card, probably a suitable penalty for the infringement. And can South turn 1 into 2 in quick succession here? Almost across the face. Now Say... He's got some pace, and he's used a bit of bulk there too on Monick. Monick's gone to ground, not happy with the referee at all. Clark hasn't had tons to do tonight or this evening. It's one of the ball boys picks up that ball that came into the grandstand. It's a shame. I thought I was going home with a match ball. In fact, it might be the head of the ball boys, I think. He might be giving the young fellow a go, mate, when they go out in the grandstand, go get them. Anyway, back to the game. And that ended up almost being you could basically count that as a shot on target there from Luke Adams, albeit sliding on his bum from halfway. Got plenty on it, but it certainly wasn't his intent to try and test out Matthew Sesto there. Salados, though, he's definitely got the intention. Not quite the application from a long, long way out. 28 minutes in, it's South Melbourne 1, thanks to a goal from Jake Marshall in the 25th minute, just a few minutes ago. You spotted something there, Katie?
Jerry Salados really doing well just to drop down, just to take that shot on. Couldn't quite get the drop on the shot there, but just a bit of a warning for the St. Albans defence. Can't allow him that sort of space. He's linking up really well with Harrison Sawyer just throughout these early exchanges in this opening half hour, but just something they have to be mindful of at the moment at this time, St. Albans.
Quite funny there of Lira Malmazi. I think he was the one who gave away the foul and protesting to the referee. He was like a little 10-year-old. He was like, oh, no way. Just had that little under 11 kind of tone to it. The referee says, yes, wait. And now, St. Albans again. The problem is, once they get it up there, they're just taking a little bit too long. Not on this occasion. Lucky it took a deflection there for South Melbourne because Monic had plenty of mustard on that one. Now, who's it come off? It has come off South Melbourne. So, the defenders doing well to get themselves in the way. And a bit of chatter going on here between Stefan Barisic and the referee, McGugan, a man who's already had a caution, but he's been sort of up and about so far for St. Albans, it's fair to say. Comes in short. Not great touch there from Barisic. McGugan, he's everywhere at the moment. Turns, and that will be a quarter for St. Albans. I believe the third. Of course, the stats do intermittently come up on your screen there, so they may prove me wrong. And St. Albans with a quarter hour to play here in the first half. Can they just get one back? Curled in. Their corners have been good so far. It's certainly been the highlight of their attack. They've been dead on. And a little pull of the arm there on Say coming there from Barisic. It was deliberate, but not enough, or anywhere near enough for a caution, says the referee. You tend to agree. Getting plenty of advice. Was Adams there from Piers Clark, wanting the ball back himself, just so he can reset and switch it from right to left. Now to Jankovic. Long down the line. Positions himself well here, Clark, but not quite well enough.
Bit of space there opened up for South Melbourne. Daniel Clark really with a bold run forward there, but some equally bold keeping there from Sesto, who looked to send it long. Dinamo just missing their tall target man in Darren Macaulay tonight. Of course, not inside, as well as Adam Hodor. They're just missing that extra, I guess that extra bit of target man forward. They've had some early chances, particularly through these corners. They just need someone to bring that home. Of course, Barisic leading the line as well with McGugan, as well as Joseph Monic really pushing forward wide and also cutting across. Just they haven't had enough chance to build that repeat sort of pressure at this time, St. Albans. Plenty of football still left to play here, though, as Hall shifts the ball down the line for Clark. What can he make of it here? Looking for Sawyer there, but the ball clears to the path of Say, whose shot is blocked. He'll look to go to Salados down there. Save! Matthew Sesto pulling out a fantastic save there. What a chance there by Jerry Salados.
Just curled it beautifully, Salados. Say just didn't give up. Then eventually found some more of that space you spoke about a few moments ago, Katie. They weren't really alert to it, St. Albans. And Salados, they gave him an inch. He nearly took a mile, put it on target. Sesto did well to make the save. Throw into the area from Adams. Not out of harm's way yet, St. Albans. Comes down from Adams again. Again, some of that space opens up, and St Albans looking a little bit confused, a little bit disorganised at times in defence in the last 5-10 minutes. It's obviously cost them 1 goal. Kruni Razov will be hoping it doesn't cost a second. Almazi back to Marshall. Adams to Marshall again. And some more patient build up here from South Melbourne. We can talk about St Albans coming in as underdogs. But ultimately, St Albans are not just going to give the game, hand the game to St Albans. St Albans are not going to hand the game to St Albans. St Albans are not going to hand the game to South Melbourne tonight. And one thing I'd say, I said the pitch was looking pristine pre-game, and it still is, but there's looks a little moist underfoot. I didn't see them watering the pitch before the game, but just a few little mud marks coming up at the moment. Nothing, little patches here and there, which I think I'm right in saying weren't there at kickoff. So interesting to see as the afternoon turns into evening. If we are, of course, not too far from the bay here, whether we get some of that dew on the grass, and that becomes a factor. The ball will skid on very quickly. Back to the play, inside, Barasevic. Here they come. Murray, out wide. Blocked by Norton. Comes down for Salados. Very nearly our second goal scorer, just moments ago. Say, he's been busy in the opening 35 minutes of this game. Hasn't been alone. Plenty in blue and a few in orange. Stamping their mark on this encounter here in NPL Victoria. Mark Verdaken with you, Katie Lambeski. Saturday evening at Lakeside. Just up against 2 there, shoved in the back, Sawyer, and the ref has blown a penalty, or is it just outside the area? I think he's saying it's just outside the area, I feel, but I thought it was well and truly inside the box. We'll have a look at the replay. Just bear with us as the players gestate with the referee. And still waiting to have a look. And that was inside the box by about a metre. Certainly, you agree? You don't agree? That's a penalty. And the referee is getting told all about it by this pro-South Melbourne crowd. And while it's still an amazing opportunity here for the home side, tell you what, the people and the fans, and they're doing what you're doing, Katie. They're pressing back 10 seconds on the YouTube. Or, of course, you can pick us up on Facebook or YouTube. As Salados resides over this similar spot from where he shot, and that is a penalty. Will they still be made to pay? Salados curls it. Not a bad effort, but just a little too much flight over the top. And Katie, you've watched it a couple of times now, and, well, the referee's made a bit of a blue there, I'm afraid. Saw Chris Bainbridge in the Social Club pre-game, of course, so long. Well, of course, a distinguished referee at the NSL and international level, and so long in charge of the referees at FV. I assume he's here tonight as in some form of referee capacity, maybe even a match commissioner of some description. Not quite sure, didn't get a chance to catch up with him. The king of the dad jokes, Chris Bainbridge as well. But wouldn't mind bailing him up at halftime and see what he thought of that one, Katie.
Unless I'm missing something, unless he's called something back for like a foul and, there wasn't the advantage sort of stopped, I don't see how they've missed that. That was, I think, based on the numerous replays there from my end, I looked like a stone-cold penalty. But credit to South, they're getting on with the I guess, getting on with the job at the moment, just still trying to pile on some late pressure. Harrison Sawyer holding it up well there. Almazi looks for Hoare, who links up with Almazi. Couldn't quite get a clear shot away there. St. Albans doing well to double back and defend. Oh, and that has to be a foul there. Well played and well held up there by Mate Barisic. And that'll be a card as well, Mark.
Well, I think it always had to be. It's certainly a professional foul. And not really a foul that necessarily had to be made. But it's Jake Marshall. So he scored a goal, but he's also now copped a yellow here in the 39th minute of the game. Just sort of almost pulled his pants down there for a second. Did see a bare bum, I think, in the rugby league last night, but we almost saw another one here at Lakeside Stadium. Venue that's had a little bit of certainly rugby union, I don't know about league, but of course more famously known back in the old days for its Aussie rules, for the old Bloods. In more recent times, South Melbourne, and now, of course, athletics in more recent times. Changed configuration many times. As when we do see South Melbourne attacking the Clarendon Street end, you see the grand old South Melbourne grandstand, as in of the Aussie rules variety, which is now home to the VIS. And while some people have shown a little bit of displeasure at the running track being installed after this was rectangularised, if that's a word, what they did gain is, of course, the grandstand we're sitting in right now, Katie, which is a cracker. Fortunately, doesn't get used enough as it should. Barisic, right across the face, had to do better. I think he was trying to square it up for some players coming through. They didn't have the pace to get on the end of it. And probably the ball didn't have enough pace to get to them as well, to give them the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think as well, they just needed another man forward there, did Dinamo. They just needed that extra number in the box just to try and get on the end of that, but to no avail. Interesting to note how the increasing bubble, like the bubbles, the marks on the pitch at the moment are just causing the passing game not to quite work for either side as sharp as they might like. It might favour more of a direct style later on as the game goes on. But South are playing it a lot smarter here at the moment. But an opportunity here for St. Albans. Shifts it wide. Monic with the cross, but Jake Marshall was well on top of that one, was just able to double back and clear.
I think it was Brad Murray there for St. Albans that started that link of play. Has done well. As big Marko Bagalic looks to take the throw. Where will he go? He'll go short. And just turning very well, giving Clark something to think about. Parries it out. Salatis is there, but so is now McGugan. As St. Albans going to attack again. And there was calls of handball there for St. Albans, and I've got to say Brad Norton might have actually collected him on the upper arm, because he only after it had contact with him did he put his arms behind his back, which almost kind of gave him away a little bit. So I don't know if that was the smart move there by the skipper. They do get away with it, although it is a corner for St. Albans. Parried away, but not far enough. Lining up the shot. Barisic. Barisic will have another crack through the middle. And in traffic, South Melbourne survive for now. Now it is Murray again. Just a little limp attempt through. South Melbourne got to be alert here. Half-time not too far away. And just labouring to get on the end of this now is Sawyer. Talk about his size. And for his size, he's got a bit of pace, but not enough pace to compete there with Jordan Wilkes, the St. Albans skipper. South will get the throw from Adams. Links with Clark. Adams again will look to curl it into the box. Seen out. And then brought down beautifully there St Albans now, Barisic. Couldn't connect. Just trying to link out on the right side of midfield there. Vargalic, well, that wasn't a great effort. Say was basically telegraphed the pass there for Say. Now can Say get his boot to it? No, Vargalic is the man, but it will go out again for a South Melbourne throw. That one looking to connect with Say, but just not enough. His throws have been pretty good tonight, Adams, but that was not one of them. Just over the head there of Hoare. Adams again. Back through Marshall. Tick over 1.5 minutes to play, plus stoppage time. If we indeed have any, probably be maybe a minute. As the sun sets over Lakeside Stadium. No doubt we'll come back out for the second half and it'll essentially be a night game. And just some good little build-up here between a couple of the players there. Parakos, that final pass was not fantastic, but it was promising for St Albans. Another throw for Bagalic. Headed down beautifully there from distance for Clark. Again, his ball can't connect, and it's got a little bit sloppy this game in the last 5-10 minutes. And St Albans have probably neutralised South Melbourne. Just when we thought they had their first goal, they might be sort of on the absolute march. But St Albans have improved. Not this time, though. Clark, Almazi. Almazi will unlock Say down the right. Has he put too much on it, or can Say get there? And that was a good tackle in the end, although that wasn't that clever, just tugging at the shirt there by the big fella. Bagalic. And we're about to see, I think it is indeed 1 minute. In fact, the board's already gone down, so it was 1 minute as far as I can see of stoppage time to be added. So in this last minute, can South Melbourne double their advantage and put daggers through the hearts of the visitors? Well, they'll probably have one chance to go forward themselves. But at the moment, it's Clark. He's done plenty in this first half. Adams, that's a good ball into the area, but Sesto had it covered from start to finish. And that is half-time here at Lakeside NPL Victoria action. South Melbourne go into the break 1-0 up, thanks to a 25th minute goal from Jake Marshall. Mark Renake and Katie Lambeski will be with you for the second half. Not too much time. Welcome back to Lakeside Stadium for this NPL Victoria Saturday twilight clash between South Melbourne, who at this stage leading 1-0 against St Albans Saints, will be back in top place in 45 minutes. But plenty of football to transpire. Mark Van Aken with you, Katie Lambetsky. Interesting first half. South Melbourne definitely on top. St Albans still showing some glimmers of hope, particularly after, ironically, South Melbourne win a goal up in the 25th minute through Jake Marshall. They just had a little bit of a purple patch, albeit fairly brief.
Yeah, they definitely responded well in the form of that setback, but they'll look to build on that. They need just that bit more sustained sort of pressure. They look to send it forward really early on in this second half as we're back underway. Both teams going back in as selected. We'll, of course, keep an eye out on any substitutions for you throughout the half. South, you have to say, though, very professional in the way that they got in front. Wasn't always smooth sailing throughout that first half, but just were able to get their noses in front and just have been able to keep to that sort of shape and that structure that has been so well drilled into them so far, and especially in this early season. I feel like they'll need another one just to be comfortable here, just to try and get that extra bit of breathing space, try to push off St Albans, really try to crush that sort of resistance out of them, try to push forward an advantage here.
Of course, plenty of other games still to play out in this week's NPL action. In fact, one coming on just after we end, because of course you can check out every NPL men's game live on Facebook and YouTube. But you probably won't get any score updates from us on those games because they start pretty much immediately after we will be finished or close to finished, depending, of course, on how much stoppage time we have. And certainly South Melbourne looked a little bit too eager. They came into the game favourites and looked like they knew it. It's a little dinky tackle there, which I'll tell you right now, Batasevic is not particularly happy about it. Just having a few words there to Harrison Sawyer. Interestingly, if I've got my stats right, and there's every chance I don't, but it looked like it was about 4 corners each in that first half. Probably not really indicative of the possession, but as I said, South Melbourne probably started just a touch too eager, putting in a few too many long balls, eventually just cooling down, playing in tighter spaces, better build-up, and they could easily, calls for handball there, and it's heated by the referee there on Mate Barisic. And he's saying, well, it wasn't me, I didn't do it. Pretty hard to argue with from this angle, and we've got a pretty good one because we're right above it here on, I guess you'd say, the far side of the ground. And the Clarendon Corner faithful, well, they fired up a little bit after the goal, but still a hush over the crowd here. As Marko Jankovic does well just to maintain the ball there for South Melbourne. His luck lasts only so long as Desic. Former Melbourne Knights man. And here's a bloke who could have also had a goal in that first half, Jerry Celiados. That could have had two. Had a cracking shot of his own from the 18-yard, roughly around the 18-yard box, curled it around. And Matthew Sesto did well to see it out for St Albans. Then, actually, one thing we didn't talk about, controversial maybe, that it looked like South Melbourne dead set had a penalty there late in that first half, but then all of a sudden didn't quite, they got the free kick, but just outside the 18-yard box. So, unfortunately, because we are on the far side, didn't really get the chance to head over to the main grandstand, as you can see on your screen, to check out with maybe the fourth official or, as we mentioned, maybe someone like Chris Bambridge or maybe just one of the punters, exactly what the explanation might be. There might have been something that both myself and Katie missed, but did have a look at it a couple of times on replay. So from that perspective, St Albans can probably count themselves pretty blessed. They're only 1-0 down at the moment, as South really have their first genuine foray forward here. Already 5 minutes gone. And as I mentioned before, half-time, we started in daylight. We're definitely not even in twilight anymore. Those long summer sunsets are definitely a thing of the past here in Melbourne. Sliding in there was Almazi. And now here comes Clark. Dylan Clark. He's worked hard tonight. He's gone down. St Albans think he went down too easy. He does sort of rile around on the ground a little bit, whether he's just trying to sell it for the referee or he's genuinely injured. Hard for us to tell from here. And those benches, South Melbourne, Luke Pavlov, Marcus Shroon, of course, the goal scorer last week against Gully, Zach Bates, Ben Dieba, and James Burgess, the backup keeper. And for St Albans, the backup, GK, Jake Angelowski. Joseph Say's on there as well. Nathan Liberto, as we wait for this ball to come in. It's a free kick. It's curled well by Clark, parried out by Sesto. Straight into harm's way, though. Little Jerry thought he might have had a crack himself there. Did the unselfish team thing. Tried to just get it into the box, and it almost bore fruit for South Melbourne there. Just complete that bench before I hand it over to you, Katie. Nathan Liberto, David Sims, and Simi Brazoya.
Options, of course, are both sides as we go on this half. Really impressive, I think, pressing play here from South Melbourne. Really doing well just to lock the ball into their half. Really not giving St Albans any sort of time to settle on the ball. Just really pressing high up the field. Not here to rest on their laurels. Really, just really wanting to press an advantage. You can see that sort of urgency to their play. Norton with the turnover there in the middle of the park. There's numbers, of course, back there for South. Denying any sort of counter-attack, really starting to play on their terms and just increasingly more and more in these early goings in the second half. Freddie Say, of course, putting a mountain of work down the wing, up and down, defensively attacking-wise as well, really putting in a shift. Good tempo, good start to this half. Of course, let us know your thoughts on the game. Let us know any comments, questions, and of course, let us know where you're watching from. Always good to have that interaction across our Facebook and YouTube streams. Too much on that pass there by Henry Hall, looking for Salados. He does well to keep it in. Looks to reload through Norton. The cross is in, but Sesto is very strong in the air there. He's able to claim the ball and looking for a man there, Mark, but just couldn't quite get the ball on target. Yeah,
it was a good cross in, and it looked like Sesto had it covered pretty much from go to woe, but there were some blue and white shirts just sort of charging into that box at pace, and you just wondered if they might just get there before he did, but he's done it well again there. And if St Albans don't get the points tonight, it's certainly no fault thus far of Matthew Sesto. Of course, wouldn't have known much about that first goal. It was a mad scramble in the box. Jake Marshall was essentially on his haunches and just headed the ball in about a foot off the ground. And he may well have even been unsighted from memory. You can, of course, check out the highlights tomorrow of the game, or, of course, the full replay at the end of the game. As more build up here for Clark. Out wide, Salados, nice one, and that's in the back of the net. And it's been coming in the early going here in the second half for the home side. And Harrison Sawyer puts his hands to the ears, says, let me hear all about it. And South Melbourne, they've got their second. It might have been a third if not for a penalty not given their way. But Harrison Sawyer, he's up there on the scoreboard at the moment. And South Melbourne, a tune they used to play back in the NSL days after the goal, so it's a little bit dated, but it never gets old. And South Melbourne, well, is that the goal that opens the floodgates tonight for what is now, at least for the meantime, the top team in the competition? I now spot Chris Bainbridge. We want to ask him a question if he can come up here. if he's allowed to. No, that's immediately waved away. And that one in, I think, the 55th minute, just immediately, 53 in fact, because a couple of minutes went past for the celebration. He probably knew what the Christian was going to be too, Chris, so he just immediately waved his old workmate away. As I mentioned, never short of a dad joke as well, so that would have worked well. He's worked so well all night, say. Not so much there. Managed to get a couple of good touches past his opponent. And now bumped to the ground, but I think that was fair play. And now St Albans, they're not putting their heads down. They're trying to counter, trying to take advantage of maybe South Melbourne, trying to bite off perhaps a little bit more than they can chew. As Barisic just sizes up his options. Just calls it in there like a futsal player for a second. He had to too, because if he had a fight, it would have gone straight into a wall of blue shirts, and the only thing you could have really hoped for was maybe a handball. So he was right to pull up, but now it's in the hands of Pierce Clark. And Barisic trying to keep him honest, so Clark decides the danger's a little bit too imminent. Now puts it back at his feet. Down the line, just playing tiddlywinks here at the moment. Harrison Sawyer having his arm tugged on, I think, by Jordan Wilkes. Wilkes doesn't agree. And just a reminder that maybe that's not the first time that's happened there from Daniel Clark for the referee. Switch on's the call there, and a fair call from McGugan. South Melbourne just slip away down the line. Clark almost squared it up. St Albans did well. Chance to counter for a second time. That's the way they're going to have to do it tonight. Throw caution to the wind. South Melbourne have shown so far this season, while they have been stingy in terms of letting in goals, they're not the kind of team that's going to go park the bus at 2-0 up either. And frankly, nor should they. Without rubbing salt in the St Albans wounds, they are a superior unit. And here's their chance to really put a stamp on it, as they've still got more than half an hour to play here at Lakeside. Almost clever, too clever by half there from Brad Norton. Drops down now for Jankovic. One thing South Melbourne does have is the luxury to maybe work that bench in the next 10-15 minutes. They're just coming off a heavy workload of games. We learnt during the week that they'll be playing St Albans' friendly foes, the Melbourne Knights, from just up the road. As in up the road from St Albans, that is. And they call it the Melbourne Derby, which I kind of take with a grain of salt because every game's a Melbourne Derby. All the teams are from Melbourne, but I take the point it was the old NSL Derby. And I'll get to the point that South Melbourne have been drawn to play the Melbourne Knights, I think, at Summer Street in the next round of the FFA Cup. So that will be a chance to rekindle old rivalries, which they already get to do, of course, in the NPL. But on the FFA Cup stage, it'll just have a little bit of extra tang. There's a shove there from Almazi. Doesn't bear fruit. Header away there from Hoare. It's non-stop action so far in the opening 13-14 minutes of the second half, Katie.
Absolutely, absolutely. And South just looking as professional as ever, really. Just have the numbers behind the ball whenever they lose possession. Just are able to be fluid in their pressing, in their sort of pressing play. Jerry Salados has that ability to cut inside. Daniel Clark really selfless with his running patterns going forward. Freddie Say as well, putting in a mountain of work. Harrison Sawyer as well, doing really well at holding up the ball, and very smart with his smart and selfless as well with his runs. It must be said. As Pierce Clark clears the ball out there. Some chance now for St Albans to build some badly needed attacking momentum here. pitch seems to be holding up a bit okay, just after we noticed just some of the marks are coming across the pitch about that first half. Both sides just really playing at a really decent tempo to start this half. Zarmazi looks to lead a counter-attack there through to Salados. Just slowly, methodically building here. Almazi looking for Sawyer up the front, but Sesto's well onto that. Saw that the whole way.
Almost come out of his box there, Sesto. And didn't really connect with it too well either. Maybe he was just a little bit nervous as he realised he had come close to the 18-yard line. And in the moment of pulling himself up, just mistimed the kick. That's St Albans. Exciting attack here into the box. Has to be parried away by Clark. Has to be good. Salados is very quick. And probably their best chances. There's a couple of players down in the box now. The 6-yard box. One each from each team as both trainers or physios onto the pitch. St Albans player, I think it's Barisic. He's first to his feet. And he'll just get a quick drink from the trainer and probably wave him away. There's Desic. I think I'm right in saying it's been a fairly quiet night for him, or evening, or afternoon, whatever you might want to call it. Not sure you can pick that up on our mic, but Piers Clark really barking out the instructions. They go short here. Just turning on a dime there beautifully, St Albans. I think it was Parakos. I'll tell you what, those fluorescent orange jerseys with the black numbers, it's not getting any easier to read those numbers. And I apologise, this is the first St Albans game of the season I've seen, so not familiar with the entire starting 11. That one's curled in well. They've got to say their corners tonight have been good, and they've almost scored there, St Albans. Just cleared off the line very well for South Melbourne. They can now counter. Can they catch St Albans napping? It's a foot race down the left. Hall doesn't get there first, but he's still in the play here. Very well done, though, by Parakos too. He was equal to it. And I think it might have been Jake Marshall clearing off the line there. And lucky he was there. As the referee points the way, he doesn't quite like it, Dimitri Parakos, but it's now going to be Salados with a throw.
Harrison Sawyer getting it done there with the clearance off the line. Getting it done at both ends of the pitch. Harrison Sawyer denying a goal, what would have been a certain goal there for St Albans. And scoring, of course, just early on in this second half of the 53rd minute. Outstanding performance so far from him tonight. Really very much a team performance at the moment, and he's just sort of leading that selfless sort of play that has come to characterise the South Melbourne side. They'll look to load up here against South, and it's Salados down the flank.
Salados still inside the area. He goes down, shouts of a pen, referee having absolutely none of it. And I've mentioned they've had 5 or so corners tonight, St Albans, and you've got to say, for mine, that's their best avenue to goal because they've all been spot on. They've actually been better at the corners tonight than South Melbourne, although South Melbourne did, of course, score their first, the opening goal of the game from a corner, but it was really a corner that went far post, way far post, and then sort of just came back in for a scramble in the goal mouth. But theirs have been spot on every single time, giving Piers Clark in his defence something to think about. If they pull one back, that's perhaps the way they're going to do it. Will it all be academic. Dylan Clark. Me foul English, that's impossible. In no particular hurry to take this throw, Luke Adams. 64, now into the 65th minute. And now just pulling back on that one was Harrison Sawyer. taking a deflection. It'll be another corner for South Melbourne. And as I said, they haven't been great corners tonight. What can they muster from this one on the main grandstand side? It'll be taken by Daniel Clark. He's been taking them all night. And while he's played very well and he's put in a big shift, haven't loved his work from this particular area of his game. But he's been great nonetheless. Ref, hang on, doesn't like what he's seen. What's he seen? Some tugging of the shirts. Was there people keeping the goalkeeper unsighted? Not quite sure. He's going to have a talk to a couple of players here, I think. Handbags at 10 yards. Come on, ref, is the call from the grandstand. Get on with it. There's Jake Marshall singled out there. And everyone is basically just cramped into that 6-yard box. Everyone except Dimitri Parakos for St Albans, and then South Melbourne have the comfort of keeping 4 back. Salados, another damaging or almost damaging ball into the area. South can chop off the counter, but only for a little while. Ball put in there from Barisic. The lights seem to just dim for a second there. And we've seen clubs over the years maybe play funny buggers with the lights, but you don't think South Melbourne want the lights going out at this stage. 2 goals to the good. 25 minutes or so, plus stoppage time to play. And it's another corner for St Albans. So certainly that stat line is one that's looking pretty good for them tonight. So I would have thought possession, the lion's share would be at South Melbourne. Shots on target as well. Or just general shots. As that's seen away. Has a couple of touches there, Barisic. Now a chance to wind up. Coming in there. For St Albans, but Clark again. Probably had plenty of bodies in front of him, but just took a good little chest mark in AFL parlance. Salados. So Hoare. Hoare will get another crack at it here. Salados just runs for him down the left. Norton doesn't honour the run row. Instead goes through the middle. Sawyer. Thought he might fire up. Say. What's he got to say for himself here? Into the area. Salados was there. Good work, though, by the Dynamo defence. Played down the line, and now a chance, after just getting cleaned up there, for Bagalic, rather. Showing plenty of zip, and I'm not sure what's happened there. But just a face plant there for St Albans. And now a good ball through Sawyer. Can he chip Sesto? He almost does. Sesto gets on his haunches. And he did well there, Sesto. I thought he was beaten for all money in the end, but he just got his mitts to it. That's what he's paid to do.
Wonderful bit of play there from Sawyer, as well as the ball to play him through on goal by Clark there. As it looks like there will be a sub made very eminently here for South Melbourne. Looks like it will be Luke Pavlou coming on in to replace Henry Hoare, of course, in the middle of the park. More of a like-for-like change, Pavlou, just to help South Melbourne see this out. Very decent shift put in tonight by Henry Hoare. And we'll just need take an early shower here tonight. Outstanding opportunity there from Sawyer, though. Just took the opportunity to take the first-time shot, go with the chip. Bit of flair, a bit of brilliance there, but Sesto proved well up to the task with the save there. Credit to St Albans, it must be said. They haven't put the cue in the racket, or they haven't just slunk back. They've just been able to try and commit numbers forward, try and push themselves forward here in the hope of clawing one back. Yankovic there, of course, has been an absolute tower in defence for South Melbourne tonight and through this season. Just seems like every time the St Albans have been able to get on on the ball and try to create a shot. South are always there to make a block, make a tackle.
Not sure what was going on with the assistant referees. We get another sub coming up now. This is going to be for St Albans. It's going to be Marko Bagalic making way for Joseph Sear. And I don't know if you saw that little passage of play there, but the St Albans player sort of flicked the ball up and then sort of scooped it up with his hand, probably half intentionally, and right in front, like a metre in front of the assistant referee, yet he waved it St Albans' way, and the referee interfered and said, "No, I don't think so, buddy. Other way." I'm not sure if that was just an error or somehow the assistant referee just didn't see the infringement, which would be stunning if he didn't. But you're right, Katie Lambeski with me, Mark Van Aken. It's St Albans. You've got to give them credit. They went down a goal. They were kind of beaten all over the park. Then they came back and played the better football for the next 5-10 minutes. As that one's called some form of, is it offside or some sort of infringement there? But then after that second goal, just had to duck the head there. Did the big fella, because yes, Mr. Sawyer, Harrison Sawyer, scores a goal, then nearly gets his head taken off 10-15 minutes later. But then after that second goal, they've still tried and tried. You just wonder if South do get a third goal, or is that what finally will put the visitors' heads down? Sure, Cooney Razov would say, well, that's not what we're made of, and yeah, the season's not quite turning out so far, and we're not that early in the season now. We're about, not quite a third of the way through, but, it is starting to sort the wheat from the chaff, but hasn't quite turned out as they would have liked, but hasn't been disastrous by any stretch. And you did touch, Katie, on the fact that they have played some good football in certain games, and then I guess when they've been good, they've been very good. When they've been bad, they've been very bad. There's a little nursery rhyme about that. We won't go into that now. As Clark looks to square it up. We won't go into it because I forget which one it is. That one's an interesting clearance because it's straight into the middle of the field, where South Melbourne now are taking the opportunity of a 2-0 advantage at home to maybe just set a couple of players back. Marko Jankovic on the ball being one of them. But now he's being told to go long by Norton, who ends up getting the ball himself. Resets all the way back. Not quite handled as well as he would have liked there, Marshall, our first half goal scorer. But controls it in the end. Jankovic. Down the right-hand side. Sayer's there, but so's Clark. He was, of course, the man they were targeting. Gets around Sayer. Now Say, step over, loads up. There are numbers, St Albans. He was looking good. And a heavy collision coming in there on Jerry Salados there. From, I think it might be, was it Barisic? Not sure if they've had any interaction on social, but as Katie pointed out, as we get another substitution coming up here for South Melbourne. And it'll happen right now. So it's going to be Marcus Shroon. So they're looking to pinch a goal. He won't get to come on just yet. And the player he's replacing is Daniel Clark. So big effort tonight for Daniel Clark. We'll be disappointed he didn't get on the score sheet, but gets a round of applause from the fans, the home fans here. He's played well tonight, and Marcus Shroon, as we know, is deadly around the goals. And will those fresh legs with 15 minutes plus to play prove lethal tonight for South Melbourne? Salados. Some of his shots have been lethal too, as Sesto just gets out. And again, that time he had it well under control, but had to pull himself up before he did go outside the 18-yard box. Again, uses the maximum area that he can, the maximum width, I guess, or length, rather, that he could. And here they come again, St Albans. through the middle. They have to shoot long. Shades of a handball on that, but nothing doing. Harrison Sawyer was the man for South Melbourne. Solomon across the top, and a header seen out by Brad Norton, which will see a corner come up. They've had plenty of corners tonight, and as I touched on, Katie, they've been good ones.
Also, a further stat to that: 5 shots on target for both sides. Just a matter of being clinical at the end of the day, and South have just been able to poach and take their chances when they have come. Good clearing header there, and Salados right in the line of fire there, and he's won the free kick. As the remonstrations begin there, South players not at all happy with that challenge on Salados. Just came right through the Parakos, of course, coming right through the back. The referee will just try and split the little fracas here. Not happy at all, Mark. Not happy at all, the South players.
Well, especially the bloke who is the victim, I guess, so to speak, with Jerry Salados. Just rubbing the back of the head, and he's probably the smallest bloke out in the field, but he's certainly got the biggest bark at the moment. And while you suspect Parakos is going to see a yellow card here, will a South Melbourne player also get one for a bit of yap? What? Hang on. Looks like we might be seeing a send-off. Oh, no. Okay, so yellow card. They're going to Dimi Parakos, and the referee telling him, come to me or I'll send you off. So come and eat your vegetables, or you'll be eating some ice cream in the social club, as we get another sub coming up, this time for St Albans. And I think it's going to be, it's Liberto coming on for, actually it is Parakos who will see his way off, no doubt. Kruni Razov doesn't want to lose the game and also lose a player for a couple of weeks. And I don't think he's quite got the message out there just yet. Here he goes. He's finally got it. So Nathan Liberto will have 14 minutes plus 13 and a half minutes rather, plus stoppage time to make his mark on the game. And you've got to say, the chatter that we can hear loud and clear at the moment out on the field is largely coming from South Melbourne. Maybe the first sign of the dam wall breaking in terms of team spirit for St Albans. So just sees it clear for his glovesman in Sesto. Jordan Wilkes wearing the captain's armband as always tonight. Just not controlling that one at all there, Anthony Desic. And again, there's a hush over Lakeside Stadium. Norton thought about throwing it backwards. Steals a couple of metres down the line, looking for his target man in Sawyer. Not up to the task on this occasion. As Almazi out wide to Adams. Say, we'll come back to Adams, and they want to move it quickly here. South Melbourne, they do. Long one, just didn't quite get onto that. Just not happy with himself there, Piers Clark. There was a hold there on Almazi. He was certainly playing for the free kick. Referee not having anything of it. Joseph Sayer was the man. And here he is again. It's Sayer versus Sayer. Beautiful foot race there, Katie. And what are we seeing here? Another substitution? Yep, they're coming thick and fast now. There'll be one for South Melbourne. I think maybe Zach Bates might be the man. Very hard to tell from over on our side of the field without the assistant referee helping us out. In fact, the fourth official, I should say. And if you can flick it up, it is indeed Zach Bates will be coming on and making way. Will be Freddie Say. And he'll get a round of applause too, because he's put in quite a big effort tonight, as you pointed out, down that wing, both in defence and attack tonight, Katie.
Yeah, absolutely. Outstanding performance there from Freddie Say, of course. Second start in the league, I think, for this season, and he's definitely made it count. Really energetic performance up and down the pitch, down that flank. Had a really good chance on goal, just was not able to pull the trigger earlier on in this half to further put some emphasis on the result here for South. Just a bit more space opening up a little bit more here through the lines. St. Albans look to take advantage of it, but it is a slip from Mate Batisic. Allows South a chance to rebuild, but persisting here with the press are Dinamo. Very comfortable on the ball there was Pierce Clark. Norton, they're linking up, of course, through the middle of the park with Pavlu. Really good spell of possession here there by South, but just weren't able to capitalise there on the halfway mark with Schrein firing that ball into Sawyer. Professional, I think, is the only word that really comes to mind here from South Melbourne. Credit to, of course, St. Albans, but they just haven't had that quality in key moments, in key areas of the game to get a goal, to pull back a goal, to that, that ability to continue to pile on chances, pile on the pressure. Just hasn't been frequent enough in this game. And South have just been able to take their chances at the other end. Sometimes it just comes down to that, Mark.
Absolutely. We mention again, only 3 goals conceded in the opening couple of months of this season now for South Melbourne. And if it stays that way, that's a absolutely massive effort by the South Melbourne defence. And, of course, Pierce Clark. Plenty of clean sheets in that mix. As South come on the attack again, very slowly. Adams. In fact, it's not Adams. My bad. It's, in fact, Marcus Schroon. And it's seen out for a corner for South Melbourne. As Jerry Salados was again just putting pressure on. And Luke Adams, in fact, it's going to be Schroon again, isn't it? He's going to, yep, makes sense. So Marcus Schroon, goal scorer last week. Came on, replacing Luke Walker. And that corner is very, very much like we've seen for most of the night for South Melbourne, just going far post. Haven't quite got their radar on from that spot all night long. Norton. Salados. Far post is the call from Pierce Clark, an on-field general at the moment as he comes out his 18-yard box for South Melbourne. Go along again. Sawyer heads it down, but there's no one home there, really, for South Melbourne. Tug of the shirt. Referee's seen it too. And now South will have a kick in a dangerous position. And Salados, looks like he's given up on this one. Just not quite the right side of goal for him. And Almazi, he's done it again to me. Marcus Schroon. Apologies, Marcus Schroon. He'll be the man over the ball. A little bit further out than he was last week in open play against Green Gully. But we know this man can curl the ball. Matthew Sesto, as another sub gets ready to come on for St Albans. They'll have to wait for this free kick. It's a good one, just over the top. Did well there, Schroon, looking to add to his goal tally for season 2021. He was on target, but just didn't quite keep it low enough. And to be fair, Sesto was just in the right place. So I reckon if he had have got a little bit lower, Sesto would have got his paws to it and tipped it over. Still would have been, I guess, a corner opportunity for South Melbourne, as St Albans can do only what they can at the moment, which is counter-attack. And they've got some numbers and just coming in there right at the last minute. Just a bang of the fence on the far side there out of frustration for that St Albans attack. And now the Saints, they'll have a corner of their own. So it's yet another corner. And at the end of the game, the stats are probably going to flatter St Albans. But to be fair, they have actually worked hard all night. That was not a great corner, although they will get another one. It's slammed straight into their one-man wall there of South Melbourne. That one's a bit better. Scramble around, maybe a clash of just shins. South want to counter, but just sliding in St Albans to stop the attack. And that one goes wide, and that will be a goal kick for the home side with 5 minutes to play. One more sub to come. It's going to be Simi Brazova, I should say. I'm probably butchering that. Apologies. And it's going to be John McGugan to make way. I think I'm right in saying, Katie. Yep, John McGugan, who started the game really well. Fair to say maybe faded a little bit as it went on. Confident he might have been seen a yellow in that first half. And Piers Clark in absolutely zero rush to take this one. As that one runs out, you've got something you've spotted there.
Just confirmation there, of course. McGugan was the one making way for Shime Berjoya. He did put in. He had some decent chances, put in some really good effort throughout that first half. But just those opportunities began to dry up a little bit, and just found himself a little bit out of the game. Sort of telling the way St Albans have been going throughout this game, have had their moments but just haven't been able to do it consistently enough to frequently trouble South Melbourne. Sawyer was tangled up in the corner there, and he wins a corner as well. Further opportunity for South. Can they find a third here? Well, it's just...
Thanks, Katie. Mark Van Aken and Katie Lambeski with you tonight. NPL Victoria action, as you know. You can tune in. There's plenty more football. I think 3 other games coming up tonight. At least a couple. You can check them out on Facebook, live streaming, as well as on YouTube. For all the old fans of I'm on Setanta Sport. Of course, now beIN Sport, part of the suite of 3 channels serving up essentially non-stop football, a little bit of rugby, but of course we want to concentrate on the round ball stuff, as I'll go back to doing now. Good touch. Almazi, was he clotheslined at the end there, or he's just slipping? Because as we mentioned, that surface, well, looking pretty pristine, and I can tell you I had a little bit of a sneaky walk on it pre-game. Didn't quite do the old Tony Greig key test. But was pretty good at game time. But as the night set in, it has got a little bit dewy underfoot. Has held up well, as we saw a couple of those patches appear just in front of our commentary position here. But it's held firm for the most part tonight. It's essentially like a carpet out there, to be honest. Not like the old, I hope that I'm saying, the old St Albans Saints ground that has improved in recent times, but it used to be like one of those old billiard tables at your grandpa's house that's sort of got a little bit of a lean down to the left-hand side. Certainly in the NPL era has been better. Just trying a party trick there was thrown. I got you there eventually, son. Wanting a ball to feet there was Harrison Sawyer. Instead it hit him right on the chest. It's still good service nonetheless. Didn't quite bring it down as much as he would have liked, Salados. And there is a big shot there from Harrison Sawyer, but straight in the waiting arms of Matthew Sesto. And with just a minute to play here in regulation time, can St Albans just pull one back? And don't forget, South are only up 2-0. It's not like they're up 3-4-0. They pull one back. We're going to see, I reckon, 3, 4, 5 minutes of stoppage time because they have a lot of subs. And we did have that little skirmish as well about 10 minutes ago. So there will be some stoppage time to play here. And if St Albans, rather, can pull one back, then that might just hit the panic button, or make South Melbourne, rather, hit the panic button in the last couple of minutes here tonight. Flip side of that is another one for South, and you would have thought it's absolutely curtains. As it is, South Melbourne still very much in the box seat. State the obvious, with 7 seconds to play in regulation time, 2-0 up. We wait for the fourth official to tell us how much stoppage time indeed we'll see, and it is 4 minutes. So there's time for another goal. Is there time for another 2? And you wonder tactically if South Melbourne's just now content to hold on to that 2-0 lead. They certainly have not parked the bus since taking a relatively early lead in the 25th minute. Through Jake Marshall, then doubling their advantage after half-time through Harrison Sawyer. And it's now going to be the gaffer for Dinamo, Kuruni Razov, seeing yellow as well. And to be well encouraged to not go on with it here because he doesn't want to spend a couple of weeks on the sidelines himself either. Saw a few weeks ago Luke Pace stepping in at Heidelberg United for George Katsakis after he earned the ire of the referees. Speaking of pace, St Albans showing plenty down the left. Good 1-2 play there now for Desic. What can he muster? Puts it into the area there, into the goal face for Vajoya. And he's done enough to earn another corner for St Albans. Keep looking at the scoreboard looking for time. It's not there, of course. Good corner. Jerry Salados sends it from the left over to the right. He's looking for Zach Bates. Couldn't quite connect with him. Bates, a second half substitute. And maybe just a flicker going out of the game. See a few fans just going for the gate. High boot there, but well out of harm's way, so no particular problems. Sesto's going to have to go long. Again, was dancing with the 18-yard line. South Melbourne, Sands trumpet, doing the Lefteri chant. Out in the far side, calling it for St Albans, was Bajoya. Was being worn pretty tightly there by Brad Norton, however. I'm not sure he was spotted by St Albans teammates anyway. Not long to play now. And South Melbourne to go back on top of the NPL Victoria table. Ziliados retreats back for Shroon, and Shroon could have and should have done better there. Regardless, it just eats up some time in the clock. And now he wants to try and win it back very quickly off Liberto. Liberto gets the ball away in time. This time they do see Bajoya down the right, but they can't quite connect. And he just went outside his 18-yard box, had a foot outside, but that will be full time here at Lakeside Stadium. NPL Victoria action. It is South Melbourne going back to the top of the NPL Victoria table with a 2-0 relatively comprehensive win tonight for South Melbourne. As I mentioned just a few moments ago, goals from Jake Marshall in the 25th minute, Harrison Sawyer in the 53rd were enough for the home side to grab another 3 points. They now improve their record to 5 wins, 3 draws, and of course, importantly, no losses in the campaign so far, and their goal difference goes up to positive 8 tonight. For St Albans, it's a different story. 2 wins, 2 draws, 4 losses now, and they'll be now down to -7. What did you make of the contest tonight? It did ebb and flow to a point, but South Melbourne definitely, I think, deserving of the 3 points, Katie.
Absolutely, just in the form of consistency of performance, just that professionalism, just able to find that other gear, especially later through the first half. We're really able just to string together some really good patches of football. Really were able to stamp their style on the game, have the game on their terms, and they get 3 points as a result of that, and yet another clean sheet, which is becoming quite an astounding record week by week. They'll finish this weekend at the top of the National Premier League Victoria table, and it's truly a deserved result, deserved performance, and the team keeps rolling on.
Interesting to see these days, of course. A lot of these under-20 fixtures getting played after the opening game. So you can see, as soon as the game's over, I thought, geez, there's a lot of people on the South Melbourne bench, but no, it's in fact their under-20 team coming out to get ready for their game. Don't forget, too, South Melbourne did have a very decent penalty shout as well that we can't explain without hanging too much on the referee, because on balance had a good game tonight, but yeah, they might well be feeling a bit hard done by to not have maybe a third goal there. Regardless, they will end the round top. On behalf of myself, Mark Van Aken, Katie Lambietsky, it's good evening, and we'll see you next week. And don't forget, there's plenty more NPL Victoria action right around Melbourne tonight.